Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever it is you're watching this from. I'm Elliot Upton. This is the at UP Fitness live feed. As always, Wednesday, 8 p.m. UK time. I'm here to answer all of your questions. Straight in there, Michaela, first one in. I'm here to answer all of your questions, blow to any smoke, mirrors, myths, legends, whatever you want me to answer, talk about, I'm here to do so. There's a lot of stuff going on in the fitness industry right now. There's a bunch of personal trainers all over the world rubbing their beady little hands together because they're about to make a ton of money out of you in the new year for all of the new year fitness fads. But I'm here to make sure you're pointed in the right direction and you choose the right one. So do ask away. News within UP. Last week, this weekend just gone, I spent about 13 hours basically training legs for a big video shoot for a load of content we've got coming out for you guys. So watch this space, that is going to be awesome. Remember, if you have any questions about any of our products, whether that be the Live Up program, which is online personal training for just £50 per month, I know, epic. I will answer any questions on that right here, right now. Remember, we also do our one-to-one online training. Obviously, we have Christmas coming up, and we're going to do something for you along the lines of the gift of fitness, so you will be able to defer a start date if you want to buy a gift like that for someone. What an amazing gift. It's literally going to be the best Christmas present in history. Common questions that are asked, I'm going to cover them right now while we've got a bit of quiet time. How much water do you drink? Between 4 and 6 litres per day. How to kill cravings? Sparkling water, a scoop of glutamine and some lemon or lime juice in there. Always does it for me. Alternatively, if you have a massive sweet tooth, you can go for Choco Treants. If you go to upfitness.com, get online, upfitness.com and search Choco Treants. It's a greens powder shake, which is excellent for managing hormonal balance. It's great for killing your cravings. It's great for the gut. It's great for helping you to detoxify. What else do people ask? Intermittent fasting. Do I believe in it for body composition? No, I do not. Me personally, and certainly from what I've seen with clients over the last 12 odd years, the more regularly you can eat, in my opinion, the better your results are going to be, because you're going to remain more anabolic and you're going to be less likely to overeat at certain sittings. It's going to keep blood sugar stable, etc., etc., many things. But intermittent fasting for body composition, no, I don't believe it's a good idea. The same is true for ketosis. I believe ketosis is too extreme a diet. It's often very badly misinterpreted, and it's poorly managed by both those advocating it and those prescribing it, as well as those executing it. That's pretty much those bits covered. They're the common start points. So just in case anyone asks that, I'm going to direct you back to the start of the video. First question has come in from Elias. Do I believe in a minimum for daily fats while in a fat loss phase? Certainly, if you're at the lower end of a fat loss phase, i.e. you're at the lowest potential calories you're going to take in, I would suggest fats at the very least from animal fats, the meats, etc. that you're taking in. Would I suggest removing it completely? No, I would not, because you are asking for major hormonal problems. So I personally wouldn't recommend that. You ever heard of 5-HTP keeping you awake? Seems to be keeping me up. No, I haven't ever heard of that. What dose are you taking? How much are you taking, and what are you taking it with? Hey, opinions on SARMs, big subject. Possibly one for a separate video, actually. So come back to me on that. Send me a direct message and I will give that, because quite a few of you ask that. Coming in, SARMs are crap. In my opinion, very weak. Evening, Elliot. Anita, what's up? Ben, hi. Vivian, hi. Opinions on SARMs again, as I say, send me a direct message on that and I'll do a separate video on it, because it's a larger subject than one to cover in here, because it will take up quite a lot of time. Kiki, Hall, George, I'm going to go for. Rosa, welcome back. Right. Something that we're covering on the run up to Christmas. Hello, Dan Dawson. All of you are pretty much about to hit Christmas party season, where you're going to be spending time out. You're probably going to be drinking. You're going to be eating stuff you don't want to necessarily be eating on your diet. What is the way to manage this? Now, I went through it in last week's video, but I will reiterate it and reinforce it now. One of the best ways you can manage your diet in the run up to Christmas and all the Christmas parties is know when your Christmas parties are scheduled. Know where they are going to be. Look at your diet and your diary up until that point. The best bet is to create a larger calorie deficit in the run up to that day to offset the potential excess that you are going to be having around that time. Now, what does this mean? Let's say if your general maintenance is about 2,000 per day, but you know you're going to be having Christmas dinner, you're going to be having a Christmas party, you're going to Winter Wonderland, whatever it is, and you know you're going to feed up. Drop your daily calorie intake by about 500 for 5 or 6 days in the run up to that. That's potentially going to allow to keep your mean calories over the week about right. Yes, it's going to mean you maybe get a little bit hungry, maybe, you know, it creates a bit too big a deficit, but it does mean you can have a little bit of freedom and potentially either maintain your progress throughout the Christmas period. And for those of you who are quite lucky and really execute it well, you may potentially progress as well. You may actually get better by doing that because it acts like a kind of refeed, a dietary refeed. So in the run up to your Christmas do's, make sure you're ready for them. Plan for a greater deficit in your diet, take a little bit more food away in the run up, and then jump in there, enjoy the days that you're supposed to enjoy, and then just control it around it. Do I believe that you should be doing extra cardio to offset this and extra weight training? No, I don't, because that's going to compound the issue. And it's also potentially going to reinforce a slightly negative mindset towards it, thinking that you can out-train a bad diet, which you can't. Control your diet, make allowances for it to get your mean calories fairly settled. It's a really good way of managing the Christmas period or any periods where you're likely to be overfeeding. Hi, Lip, with the UP Women online plan, do you give macros for the day? No, we do not give macros on the Live Up plan. What we do give you is a basic set of rules. So it's portions. If, let's say we give you X amount of meals and I say this is the size of portion you need if it's a meat of any kind. It could be chicken, could be red meat, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the portion size. This is the portion size of carbs. This is the portion size of veg. This is the portion size of fats. That's all we give you. I don't want you tracking and meticulously managing your diet to that degree, because in my opinion, it isn't sustainable. It's a way to learn how to get a transformation very, very quickly, absolutely. But it is not a way to learn how to live with your diet. And for me, when I wrote the Live Up plans, it was a case of getting a transformation extraordinarily quickly, but a transformation that was sustainable and that you could live with long term. Now, it worked, essentially. You know, if you speak to anyone who's on the Live Up plan, it does work. It gets the transformations, it gets the results. It's also sustainable and manageable. There are people still on that plan. When I wrote it nearly 3 years ago, there are people still eating exactly to the plan right now, and they're still in amazing shape. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding, it worked. But no, I don't give you macros for that reason. On a one-to-one basis, one-to-one online in macros can be very, very useful purely because they can be monitored, and the closer attention you will get from one-to-one personal training or one-to-one online personal training allows the trainer to monitor your mindset and your attitude towards your diet and your food a little bit closer than I can on something like the Live Up plan, because it's a minimal input plan from the trainer. It's all managed through the forum, it's centralized. So when you're doing one-to-one, things are a little bit different and macro targets will be given. Opinions on creatine. Vivian, it's very, very useful. Should be taken about 5 grams post-workout, and it can be, that's just to help absorption, and it can be very, very good for minimizing degenerative bone diseases in females and also aiding in training intensity and resistance to fatigue. UP books, I haven't managed to read excerpts yet, but should the entire collection be purchased to get an all-round understanding basis of forming a plan, or would the latest 2 suffice? The latest 2 absolutely would suffice. The following 2 or 3 that we're looking at doing are more specialist areas, but certainly if you want to know how to train and diet yourself or a client and know how to progress or regress that, the last 2 will suffice, absolutely. How to deal with hard times in your personal life, is this reflecting recovery? Any tips? Tired of being fueled by anger at the gym? Bella, to be honest, stress, emotional stress like that is the biggest factor in people's lack of results. Now, it's hard because I'm quite brutal with this. I am almost too ready to get rid of stress in my life. If you stress me out, if a friend, family member, whatever, brings any form of stress onto my life, I wash my hands of them immediately. That's a non-negotiable. It's the way I've always been. It's the way I always will be. It keeps me happy. It keeps my life extraordinarily good and pretty damn calm. Not everyone is able to be as brutal as I am in that respect. So to try and empathize with you, you know, sit down with a pen and paper and write down the things that you know are causing you the most stress, that are making you angry. Now, prioritize them. What is the one thing that you can change that will make the biggest difference? Now, that's not necessarily to say cut them off like I would. Maybe it's to communicate with them. Maybe it's a way to try and solve the problem, but ultimately you do have to solve that problem. If, of course, it can't be solved in the easiest way, then my best advice to you, as unreasonable as it may seem to some, is to cut that stress off. You know, stress acute stress doesn't weigh on you. Acute stress is good for the mind, it's good for the body, it allows you to change and adapt. If stress is hanging off you for a very, very long time, irrelevant of what kind of stress that is, physical, mental, emotional, eventually it's going to kill you. So, you know, if someone is bringing that into your life or something is bringing it into your life, self-preservation should suggest that you remove it. So that would be the best bit of advice I can give you. Wiley, hello. What have we got? What have we got? Jonathan, I'm on the Live Up plan. I've got a night out over Christmas. Can't really avoid. Does ditching meal 4 in the week running up to that seem like a good idea? No, I wouldn't ditch an entire meal, because by reducing the meal frequency, you're going to reduce the amount of protein you're taking in. You're going to reduce the amount of nutrients you're taking in. What I would potentially recommend is that you drop out your carbohydrates every day until then, not an entire meal. Vivian, you're welcome. Not a problem. Hannah's, I'm exactly the same. Stress, get rid of it. Absolutely, it's the way to do it. As a woman, 1200 a day carb cycling, working out 4 times a week, carbs 25, fats 35, protein 40, a percentage I assume you mean. Cheat days at weekend, can I still lose weight? There's no reason why not. There is absolutely no reason why not. Does the UP Women online plan include workouts or just nutritional plan? Workouts and nutritional and supplementation plan. Bandit coffee, if and when to have it regarding cortisol. I'm a fan of not having it. I recommend to all of my clients for general well-being, cognitive function, physical function, and maximizing results that they don't have it. Now, I know that I fall within a small percentage of trainers who suggest they don't have it. There are many, many, many reasons for that, many knock-on reasons for that, but each to their own. I recommend, if you want results, ditch coffee, certainly for at least a couple of weeks to try and see the effect on your body. If you absolutely must have it and you choose to have that little bit in the morning as opposed to your maximum optimal level of results, then you have it first thing in the morning. Work with your body's natural cortisol curve. Now, your cortisol curve basically is your body give you a shunt of cortisol first thing in the morning. That's what wakes you up. So if we imagine a graph here, right? First thing in the morning, cortisol is high. It sits at the bottom of the graph, and the idea is that throughout the day it drifts down really, really slowly, so it's low at night and you can go to sleep, okay? So if we're looking at the axis of the graph, it's drifted down, it's nice and low at night. Now, the problem is, what most of us do is we have a coffee in the morning, which is fine because cortisol is high and coffee is gonna kind of encourage that. Now, we start to drift down, and what do? We get halfway through the day, we have another coffee, it spikes it up high, we drift down, then we wonder when we can't sleep because we're still stimulated at night. So if you are going to have coffee, if you absolutely must, have it first thing in the morning upon waking, and that is it, done. You don't need it any other time. What do I do if I'm happy with the amount of upper body muscles I have? Not sure, Nick. What would you like to do? I don't know. What's the question there? What is the question? What should you do if you're happy with the amount of muscle you've got on your upper body? I feel like there's an end to that question that you may not have put in, so give me a shout on that. How have we caught up with questions already? Have I given you folks too much information over the last 50 odd weeks of this year? Maybe I'm running out of stuff to tell you. Hi, Danielle Menzies, how are you? Do I keep lifting weights or stop? Keep lifting or you'll lose it, Nick. But just, base it on a maintenance. You can just keep yourself adjusting, look at lagging body parts. Is there any part of your physique, your upper body physique, that you're not happy with? You can increase frequency on that, say train it 2 or 3 times a week, whilst just maintaining the rest of your physique on 1 time training a week, something like 1 to 2 times. It's quite a particular question, If I absolutely envy you if you're happy with the shape and size of your upper body, because I've been after that for decades and I still can't get it. So that's a really, really cool place to be. Well done. But yeah, if you want to maintain, I would recommend, just training enough to maintain. You will know, you're going to know if your body starts to fall out of shape. But if you were to train and then just stop completely, your body is going to start to atrophy because there's no demand for that muscle to remain. So do continue to train, just train as much as you need to. There's no need to really smash it. There's no need to be going crazy intense. There's no need to be doing masses of volume or masses of weight. Just get there, maintain it, keep it steady. Danielle Menzies, just new to the cleaner eating as I've been going to the gym and no changes. Any breakfast ideas? Name it, the optimal breakfast, Danielle, would always be protein and fats. Now, the whole world tends to have that a little bit wrong. They have carbs first thing, which from a mental point of view is going to slow them down a little bit. It's also not going to be optimal for fat loss and building muscle, potentially, for most people. So I'll always recommend, if you can have protein and fats for breakfast, the ideal breakfast is probably going to be red meat and fats like nuts or avocado or something along those lines. If not that, you can have salmon and scrambled eggs, you can have omelets, if you're fairly creative, you know, you can do protein pancakes, you can do all sorts of stuff. What I would just try to do, if you have fat to lose, certainly until you're very, very lean, is avoid carbs for breakfast. There are a million different ways you can do that. Just try and be a bit creative with it. Cardio versus weights. When losing weight for a 5'2" woman, your size is literally irrelevant. Weights all the time, always weights, always weights. I just feel shoulders look big and traps. So, you know, stop training them. You know, traps again are one of them. If you've got really, really good testosterone profile, you know, if your testosterone receptors are good and strong, then you're going to end up with bigger shoulders and traps. So that's usually a really, really good sign of your male hormone balance. So, you know, certainly don't wish it away, but, you know, drop off training them so much. SSM, what's my 1RM on the big three? Previous to my hamstring, I tore my left hamstring, my right glute and my left lat. Previous to that, I had 145 kilo bench, 265 kilo deadlift and 185 kilo squat. My squat's actually heavier than that, weirdly, now that I've started trying to do it. I don't deadlift anymore because of what I did to my lat and my glute, so I'm really, really careful with that. I would estimate if I tried to get back into it again, I'd probably be above 250 in maybe a month or so. But yeah, my squat's going back up steadily. I've just got to be very careful on my hamstring. Now, where did you say the archives of these Q&A sessions go? They're all on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you type in Elliot Upton, and you will see them all sitting there along with a load of other video content that I've put up. What are the best exercises to build the core area for women? Squats and deadlifts. If you want strong abdominals, you want a strong general physique, then I would suggest squats, front squats, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts. They're going to really, really work you hard. It's probably not the answer that you wanted, because most females, when asking that kind of question, want to know what kind of crunch to do. Ultimately, crunches are not going to do much for you if the rest of your body is not strong. All they're likely to do is pull you into a certain position that's more likely to make you injured. You know, if you're in that kind of slightly forward leant position when your hips aren't healthy, your back isn't healthy, your spinal erectors are not strong, etc. So squats and deadlifts and variations thereof. Weight training for strength or hypertrophy when on a caloric deficit. Sorry, weight training for strength or hypertrophy when on a caloric deficit. What's the question, Chet? Can you recommend any natty badasses, sick of lying, juiced up PTs, just selling online training? Unfortunately, Bandit, no, I cannot. I don't know anyone the kind of people you're looking at, the kind of people you're talking about who are actually natural. You know, the proof is in the pudding. You look at most people and you think, right, is this person bigger than is easily achievable? Is this person leaner than is relatively easily achievable? And is this person fuller than is easily achievable? Now, we can get some exceptional results out of clients, more so than anyone else on the planet. But, you know, these people tend to be of average weight, you know, let's say between 60 and 80 kilos. They tend to be extraordinarily lean, yes, but we're talking between 6 and, let's say about 8%. And unfortunately, unless they're carved right up, they tend to look relatively normal in clothes. The people I think you're talking about are the guys that are 105 to 115 kilos, are jacked and juiced year round, they're shredded year round. Unfortunately, no, I can't turn around and suggest to anyone that I would really say, you know, follow this guy. I know they're natural. I think they put out some really good content. I think it's pretty much a thing of the past in the industry, unfortunately. You know, we obviously try to put out valuable content to people, to real people, you know, to people who are natural athletes, what actually works for you, the normal person. Unfortunately, the rest of Instagram is not doing the same. Is German volume training effective enough if I'm looking to get a pair of legs? Absolutely, Dan Dawson. GVT is monstrous for gaining size. If you ask me, it's one of the most effective programs on the planet, irrelevant of who you are, for gaining size. The one thing I will say with GVT, two things in fact I'm going to say, is number one, make sure you know how to lift. and make sure you are very, very capable of lifting correctly and you've got a couple of years under your belt. Number 2, have a very, very good massage practitioner or soft tissue therapist on hand at all times, and stretch a lot, because it can be brutal, especially on the shoulders areas, lots of pressing movements. It can really tie you up, so just be careful on that. Danny Wade, thanks for the feedback this week. Elliot, I'm off to Singapore in the New Year. Is it easy enough to book into the UP gym there? Yes, it is, absolutely. If you just drop them an email, go onto the website upfitness.com, go to the gyms section, select Singapore, and you can send in an email directly to them to sort anything out. Nick Brev, I'm female, by the way. Then you're in a brilliant position. I don't know many females, Nick, that turn around and say they've got amazing, amazing shoulders and upper body, but there you go. Just started using resistance bands on my barbell RDLs and keep getting bad cramping toes. Do you know why this would be? Am I doing something wrong? Yeah, you're loading your toes too much, basically. So instead of putting the weight in the heels, you're probably putting the weight in your feet, and that's causing tension in the arch. So 2 things I would do. Number 1 is roll the arches out. So get a golf ball or a tennis ball and actually roll the arches of your foot to relieve some of the tension there. Same applies to your calf. Start relieving that a little bit, and make sure the weight is in the heels. Almost try and roll your toes off the floor a little bit, and stretch them out to make sure you're loading the heels. It will also suggest that if you're cramping a lot, you're probably not taking enough magnesium, so up your magnesium dose, or take some if you're not already. No, the core answer is great. I'm on the right lines. Never do crunches. Good. Then you're nailing it. Go for the bigger movements. The deadlift caused a lat and glute injury. Hope you get back up to that 250 pretty soon. To be honest, SSN, I'm not even going to try the deadlift. I know I can probably still pull quite easily 220, 230. That's not an issue. But pushing beyond that, I have no desire to. You know, I did it. I ticked it off. It was actually Charles Poliquin, rest his soul, that said, right, you should be able to do this, this, and this. So I quite single-mindedly said, right, fine, fuck you, basically, and went for my big squat, big deadlift, etc. Got up there pretty quickly. I was a body weight of 89 kilos. I did 265 squat, 265 deadlift, 185 squat relatively easily, and benching 145, but for one, and that was quite messy. But it kind of hit all of the goals. It was a twice bodyweight squat, 3 times bodyweight deadlift almost, and it was the 1.5 times bodyweight bench press. But the injuries it left me with afterwards weren't worth me trying it again. So I tore my lat, actually weirdly not in a squat. I'd just done a set of squats, a set of 6 at about 160 odd, and I racked the bar, put the bar down, and as I walked off and did the usual like that, stretched my chest and my back and everything out, and then my left lat cramped so hard that it pulled itself away from the origin point in my mid back, and I was in agony for about 6 months. My right glute I pulled deadlifting, ripped the glute med away from my sort of basic my iliac, screwed that quite badly, and then my left hamstring I pulled doing interval sprints in June of this year. So yeah, left me with plenty of injuries. So, you know, I've done that. I've got no desire to go crazy heavy on those big lifts. You know, I'm happy if I can get my squat up to about 200. I'm fairly happy there. I've got no real desire to deadlift now because it caused me a lot of issues while I was doing it. Squatting I can get away with fairly easily. It's not too much of a problem. Mechanically I'm very well built for squatting, so that's my kind of priority there. So we'll see. Logan, any tips for a trainer who wants to get good at getting client results? Yes, care. Basically, care for your client, care for the transformation, want that transformation more than they want the transformation. If you genuinely do that one thing, if you care about getting that result more than they do, then you will do whatever it takes to get them there. If you are doing whatever it takes to get them there, that client will believe in you. When that client believes in you, they will do what you ask consistently. It really is that simple. The secret to being a great trainer is to care more than everybody else. Health Hacker Gemma, Elliot, would you like to feature as a guest on Health Hackers? You'd be great. Happy to help. If you want to send me a direct message, Gemma, we can certainly have a chat about it. Jax, what's up? Hey up sexy. I'm not sure how to respond to that, Jax. Depends, you know, how good looking you are, of course. Hey. Rosa the Poser, is working night shift likely to affect my metabolism? Any tips on keeping up with training during the day instead of sleeping? It depends how severe the shifts are, what you're doing the rest of the day, how well you are resting. There's an awful lot of things that can go into that. I don't necessarily think it's smart to turn around straight away and say, oh yeah, my metabolism is bad because, you know, because the chances are most people who say, oh, I've got a bad metabolism, I've got this, I've got that, are also eating cookies every day. They're drinking sodas, they're not eating the right amount of of nutrients, they're not training hard enough, doing all these things. So could it have an effect? Yes. Is it likely to be the issue with regards to your body composition? Probably not. No. So I wouldn't suggest getting into the mindset where you think, oh, there's something wrong with my metabolism, when there probably isn't. It's probably the cake and the cheats that you might be having elsewhere. Chet, when trying to lose weight or body fat, what's preferable in terms of rep range on compounds? Would you stick to 1 or change your rep range 4 to 6, 8 to 12? For me, Chet, optimally, what I've always found is for the majority of guys, go between 6 and 10. For the majority of females, go between 8 and 15. I've always found that to be most optimal for fat loss. Would I go lower than that? You know, we're talking the 4 to 6 range? Not necessarily, no. I would get someone lean by burning fuel, i.e. the 6 to 10 range, because there you're going to get optimal hypertrophy, the maximum amount of muscle growth, which therefore is going to elevate metabolic output, but you're going to be burning fuel during the sessions as well, which is really, really important. So 6 to 8 for men. Females, because your power output is slightly lower, I would go 8 to sort of 15. Ranging through that. Why? Because it's important that you are strong and you are building muscle and you get the confidence to learn what it feels like to be strong more than anything, because that knock-on effect is huge for the rest of your body and the rest of your training, your compliance to your diet, etc. So without a doubt, get on a varied amount of rep ranges, but I would recommend for the most part sticking between those two. That's not to say at the end of workouts you can't do things like Widowmaker sets, you know, 20, 30 rep sets, whatever. But for the most part, men stick between 6 and 10. Females, I suggest sticking between 8 and sort of 12 to 15 is a really nice place to be. Once you are lean, once you have a desirable amount of body fat and a good amount of muscle, if you then want to move into a strength training style of training, then by all means drop the reps, up the weight even further. Dan Dawson, you're welcome. No worries, Nick. Kiki, amazing. Thanks so much. Not a problem. Golf ball, it hurts. It does hurt, but spend some time in it, a couple of minutes a day, and it will really help. When I take all of my supplements, I feel really sick as normal. Wiley, depends what you're taking. Are you taking zinc with that? Sup, boss. Sup, Sarah. How are you? Cam, when trying to put on muscle naturally, when you hit a point of body fat increase, held calories for 3 weeks, when should you increase calories again? Cam, I would suggest when you start to dry out. So look for that kind of slight reduction in body fat again, where potentially your metabolism has caught itself up. If you start to dry out a little bit, then increase by 50 and slowly take it up that way. Sarah, yes, I've actually gone into my tips for getting fit over Christmas. Number 1, keep your training consistent. Don't skip training days, you know, plan for your Christmas dues so you know when you're going to be hungover, you know when you're not going to be hungover. Adjust your training days to make sure you do not miss a day. Also, adjust your diet by creating a calorie deficit in the run-up to scheduled Christmas dues, days out drinking, Christmas parties, going to Winter Wonderland, whatever it is. That was a shameless plug for Winter Wonderland. It's okay, send your sponsorship money in the post. Are you opening a gym in Leeds? This is Aline. We may well be. You never know if you're lucky. Night shift is just for a couple of weeks over Xmas. Thanks, Elliot. Then no, it's not going to have the slightest effect on your metabolism, really. Just make sure you're managing the rest while you can get enough sleep. How does UP online training plan work? So, we have a couple of versions. We have a one-to-one online training plan, which is basically you are assigned a singular trainer, someone who is there 24/7 for you. They take your information, they construct a custom program for you, custom diet plan, custom meal plan, custom supplements plan as well. That gets sent to you. They then are with you 24/7, making sure you've got everything that you need. We also help you through a central forum, which I run, making sure you're constantly on the right track. You're never left wanting for anything. That is then monitored via check-ins each week. Changes are made. It's very, very customized, right down to the finest detail to you. The other alternative to that is the Live Up plan, which is a pre-made program. It isn't customized to you, but it's a program that I wrote a bunch of, we're talking like 3.5, 4 years ago now, which is kind of the best program in my mind that can get a better transformation out of everyone in the general public. That then is adjusted along the way. Minor changes are made based on the results that you send in a check-in each Monday. So it's less customized. You only have access to a trainer once per week on the Live Up plan, whereas one-to-one online, you have access to them 7 days a week. Both of them do have access to a central forum where we do have kind of activity going on all day, every day. Zinc mag, cod liver oil, okay, lots of others too. So Wiley, the chances are you have to take zinc on an empty stomach, otherwise it can, on a full stomach, otherwise it can make you nauseous. So make sure you've eaten before you take zinc. The rest of them shouldn't be causing you any problems, but if they are, always take them with meals. Will be very, very useful. And make sure you're taking zinc and magnesium, for instance, apart. Zinc in the morning, magnesium in the evening. that my old PT used to recommend training different body parts on different days, but my new PT says full body workouts. Listen to your later PT. Now, the old PT is basically going off of a very, very outdated and kind of poorly educated approach to weight training. Smashing a muscle to pieces once a week or once every 8 to 10 days, whatever, and then hoping for recovery doesn't really work. The reason being that a muscle has kind of an optimal relationship between the stimulus put on it, i.e. the amount you train it in a session, and the amount of time it takes to recover. Now, that optimal period of recovery is about 48 to 72 hours, so let's say 2 to 3 days. Now, if you smash a muscle to pieces, and it kind of, we imagine a baseline right along here, and it's going to be hard to do without a graph, but if you imagine I'm drawing a graph here, we have a baseline here, and we have a stimulus at one end of that baseline. This is the training. Now, after that training, as you know, your muscles are going to get weaker and damaged, so they go down below the baseline. Now we go 24 hours, 36 hours, and then it starts to rise, probably around the 36 to 48 hour mark, until it arrives back at baseline, where theoretically you could train it again, but you're not going to progress. Whereas at about 72 hours, if you've trained it with the right amount of stimulus here, it's actually improved. So the muscle has got weaker, it's recovered, realized that it's kind of been attacked and damaged, and it grows back stronger. Then you train that again and it repeats the cycle. So what you end up with is stimulus, recovery, stimulus, recovery, stimulus, recovery. And as you see, that line goes up. Now the problem is, if you end up, let's say you overstimulate, okay, you train too hard in one session, you create too much damage, then that stimulus causes too much damage, you go too far below baseline, you can't recover, and then if you're training too frequently, you go down, you train again, you go down, you train again, and you regress. Now, if you were to do single splits, what you actually do is you get the stimulus, let's say you got the stimulus right, but you only train it once a week as per those old school splits. The stimulus, you damage the muscle, it recovers better, but then it's not been trained again, so it says, oh, okay, I'll return to baseline, down there, then you train again. So in that way, you actually just tend to progress like this. Now, don't be wrong, some people, certainly assisted athletes, old school bodybuilders who are doing a lot of stuff that the general public is not going to do, this worked for because they've got genetics on their side, they had all sorts of other things on their side. When you initially start training, that again is going to potentially be beneficial because you are going to undergo a period of adaptation irrelevant of what you do. You know, you could do 1,000 press-ups a day, you're going to adapt and you're going to get in shape initially for the first maybe 1 or 2 years. After that, it gets a little bit more complicated and you have to understand the body's recovery period and the amount of stimulus that each individual can take. Now, that does differ from every single person. You know, some people are going to be able to recover at an extraordinary speed, other people are going to take a lot longer to recover. The art and the science is that kind of finding your specific balance of stimulus and recovery, figuring out what that is, and then training frequently to do that. So full body for me is better because it gives you exactly the right amount of volume per session to create stimulus without overloading. And by training full body, let's say every other day or every couple of days, it allows you to hit that peak each time perfectly. I hope that makes sense. It's quite a long-winded way of doing it, and without a graph to actually stand here and show it on, it's very, very difficult, but I hope that kind of makes sense. Let me know. Vibe Style, hey, you mentioned carbs before bed, but what if you train in the morning, afternoon? Would you still have some post-workout carbs as well as carbs before bed? Post-workout carbs are going to be there to help kickstart recovery, potentially open up the cells to allow better absorption of nutrients and glucose. So yes, I would suggest post-workout. And for the majority of people who are relatively lean, they can also afford some before bed, providing calories are where they're supposed to be. So yes, I would maybe have some before bed as well, and that's going to help you sleep. What you have to remember is the better that you are recovering, the better you're going to train, the lower your cortisol is going to be, the lower your stress hormones are going to be, the higher your motivation is going to be, the better your neurotransmitters are working. So by recovering and really taking care of your sleep and recovery, there is a knock-on effect, a great knock-on effect to every other part of your body composition training with that. So yes, I would have them before bed, certainly, and post-workout on training days. And that alone, you know, if you're only having them before bed on non-training days, but you have them post-workout on training days as well, that also inadvertently creates a carb cycle, which can be very useful. Joanne, any point of B12 injections if you don't suffer with a deficiency to aid weight loss, improve mood, improve sleep pattern, or just a new fad that's being abused? A lot of people are very, very deficient in it. If you are not deficient, I don't necessarily see why you should be taking them in. There may be some studies, I don't know of them, but I will do a bit of reading on that, that suggest that having a higher level of it can really, really help. But for me, if you are not showing as particularly low, then why put something in? So I don't know. How do I find out how much the online program is? This is Salim. If you go to upfitness.com and go to the online training tab along the top of the page, or depending on what you're viewing it on, you can go to the menu in the top left of the page and go to online training there, and it will bring up the options and all the pricing there. Wiley, no problem. Helen Fran, what's up? Lou, hello. Niz, what's up? Hamza, tips to lower estrogen in men. First and foremost, don't take it in, so monitor what you are taking in. Make sure your food is organic, grass-fed, lots of red meat, lots of very, very clean meat. Taking a high intake of dark green vegetables. Dark green vegetables have a compound in them called indole 3-carbinol, which helps to detoxify estrogens, xenoestrogens out of the body. Then you can also support that with supplements like our Estro Support, which you can find on upfitness.com. Now what that does is it supports both phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification. Phase 1 is essentially getting hold of the estrogens and pushing them down into the liver and pushing them down to try and be excreted. Now the problem is when they try to be excreted, the phase 2 of detoxification, there's an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase which latches onto that enzyme thinking it's estrogen, thinking it's a good estrogen, and it shunts it back into the body. What Estro Support does is it helps the kind of liberation and clearance of the phase 1, so gets the estrogens out of your body and ready to be excreted through urine, whatever it may be. It also helps to reduce the amount of estrogen that is bound and brought back into the body. So it's an amazing supplement to work alongside a good diet, high in greens, high in water intake, and very, very good, clean, organic, grass-fed foods. I want to start again. Start again then, blonde girl. Nia Thorne, what's your opinion on cheat reload meal every 10 days? Am I being a pussy for having it when the rest of the time my diet is pretty lean and low carb? Thanks, Nia. It depends on your general calorie intake. It depends on your activity level, general compliance. You know, one of the things I find with cheat meals, open meals, cheat weekends, whatever it is that majority of people who are having them, A, aren't training hard enough, B, certainly are not dieting hard enough or consistently enough. And this is why they tend to screw up, because they may not notice that 2 or 3 times a week they've had some beers, or they've had this, or they've had some waffles, or they've had some pancakes, and they've screwed up their general calorie balance. Then they have a cheat meal on top of that because it was scheduled, you know, because it's in their plan that it's there, even though they've cheated anyway. So an open meal can be beneficial, mostly psychological in my opinion, not necessarily physiological for the most part, because people are cheating anyway. It takes a very, very special person, very, very driven person to be 100% compliant on their diet realistically. So do they serve a purpose? Yes, they do. Do I think that most people should be having them? No, not necessarily. And it's also very, very important to understand the difference between a refeed, or like a carb reload, and a cheat meal. They're 2 very, very different things. A cheat meal is essentially scheduled or not lacks of dietary control, basically. You know, I'm having something because it's going to help my brain and because I want it. It's a relax, it's taken off. A refeed is a scheduled increase in certain nutrients, usually carbohydrates. That's not to say you turn around and have a massive pizza which has got very little nutrient density, massive amount of calories. There's no real control of how many calories you have in there, depending on where you get the pizza, etc, etc, etc. So, you know, it's understanding the difference between a refeed and a cheat meal, and do you really deserve either one? Have you dropped your carbohydrates low enough for any length of time? Have you been consistent on your diet? Have you been consistent on the exercise? If it is a controlled refeed or a controlled controlled cheat meal per se, make sure that you've done the steps leading up to that in order to actually deserve it. What kind of exercise do you recommend on rest days? Something relatively light that doesn't stimulate the nervous system or tax the muscular system too much. So walking is fine, cycling is fine, go out with the dogs, go for a swim, play a little bit of sport, nothing too intense. Something that allows your muscles to rest, your brain and body to rest, and your joints to rest. Danny, hi Lit, great work, thanks for all the help. No problem at all, Danny. And Salim, you're most welcome. Wiley asked a PT for help in the gym with weights, and he said body pump classes are more cardio. It's confusing. Would you learn how to do the freestanding weights, machines or pump? That PT is very, very right. It's kind of unprogrammed, relatively ineffective if you ask me. Cardio. You're not optimally loading the muscle. You're certainly not lifting safely. I've been in the fitness industry in commercial gyms working for 12 years and training for like 17 years, and I've never once in all of that time seen anyone with good form in a body pump class. So my advice to you is, if you want results and you don't want to be injured, is stay away from body pump classes until you have learned to lift. Learn how to lift, learn how to be that one person in that class who is lifting correctly, and you may get more out of it. However, it is still a cardio class. It's high volume, it's minimal load, it certainly isn't very well programmed, in my opinion. That's the opinion of me, Elliot Upton, not UP. It's one of those. Treat it as cardio if you're going to do it at all, but would I necessarily recommend doing it? No, I probably wouldn't. Health hack, Gemma. Great, glad it does, because that was quite a long subject. I apologise for the blithering on. I've been a relatively consistent calorie deficit for the past 16 months, lost 12 kilos, mainly at the start of the program. Big fan of carb cycling. Weight has plateaued, but still stubborn fat left. Any tips? Danny, it depends how low you've gone in your calories. Tell me your weight and where you are in your calories now. Hello, Carol. MLBT, hello. Mob, what's up? Nia, great. How to argue against a vegetarian? Slap them with a massive fat piece of steak and tell them to leave my house. That's what I'd do. How to argue against a vegetarian? Honestly, Hamza, you can't. Vegetarians are like CrossFitters. They have often very little education, but seem to think that they know absolutely everything there is to know. My usual question to the majority of vegetarians, you start trying to preach to me if I can tolerate them for more than 3 seconds, is okay, tell me the things that you are going to be deficient in if I took a blood test of you. And I'm yet to find one who can answer it. Jenny Stokes, hello. MLBT, do we have our own site? We do indeed. It's upfitness.com. So if you go to UP Fitness, that's our website. Or if you mean my page is Elliot Upton here on Instagram. How many times a week should I be training? I'm running 3 times per week, around 3 to 10K, and at the gym twice per week too. Weight has been stuck at 12, desperate. Nisbatan, I would suggest that you stop running for a start. At best, do 2 moderate state cardio sessions. So instead of running, go on a fast uphill walk and switch that to 3 weight training sessions a week, and you'll probably find you lose an awful lot of fat, an awful lot faster, and when you get lean, you look an awful lot healthier. Running, unfortunately, for all of those of you out there who really, really love running, running is not the one. No worry, Gould. You know, that's gonna split some people's opinions there. You know, I've spent too many years personally. This is not a UP thing. This is a me thing. I've spent too many years having arguments and banging my head against a brick wall with vegetarians who just aren't willing to listen. You know, I've got no issue, absolutely zero issue whatsoever, helping everybody. Anyone who is willing to take that help. If I put effort into giving you information, then take it. I'm yet to meet in all of my life, it sounds extreme, but all of my life, a vegetarian who is willing to accept the facts rather than their opinion or something they read in Vegetarians Weekly, whatever. So I apologize if do I? UP apologizes if I offend anyone there, but it's my opinions. What's the best way of measuring progress hypertrophy during my GVT plan, Elliot? I've literally started it this week, photos versus actual weight measurements. I wouldn't worry so much about your weight, Dan, but if you're looking for hypertrophy, then I would certainly take photos every week, same time every week, and take measurements and girth measurements of the places that you want to grow. Nisbatan, no problem. Philly, no problem. Hello. Gould, good. For anyone who's wondering as well, the things that most vegetarians or vegans out there, if you're watching, the things you are more than likely very, very deficient in are various vitamin Bs, vitamin K, iron as well. So make sure you're supplementing with them. It can also cause you a lot of other stuff. Cheers, looking forward to growing some legs. You know, for me, legs is about frequency. If you don't overdo your volume, in a session. GVT is really effective, but you know, you're gonna be wanting to train maybe, I wouldn't suggest doing your legs more than 5 to 7 days apart. You know, don't train them any more frequently than that. Otherwise, you've got no chance. Plats, what's up? And as I say, make sure you have a therapist on hand. Make sure you are moving. Make sure you are stretching your hips, your glutes, your hamstrings. Take it from somebody who knows when you're trying to go through protocols like that can be heavily taxing on the muscular system, on the joint system. make sure you are looking after your body as well as lifting. It's very, very easy to get caught in the trap of just taking in a whole load of volume, a whole load of weight, and then regretting it a few months down the line when everything tightens up and you can't move anymore. 79 kilos, 3 low days, 1490 moderate, high 20, refeed. I would maybe just try drifting those calories up a bit, Danny. Start taking them up steadily and see if you start losing again. What do you mean 5 to 7 days apart? 5 to 7 days apart, so don't train legs every 4th day, for instance, because you won't recover quickly enough. I've got tight hip flexors massively then. Dan Dawson, my advice to you would be rapidly to get that fixed before you start something like GVT, because that will rear its ugly head. Hamza, tips to improve skin. Nutrition, if you're taking in enough nutrients from quality meats and enough vegetables, then your skin should be absolutely fine. Again, keeping relatively high fat diet I've always found helps with good skin. If you find you have dry skin, you have issues with eczema, anything like that, anything that manifests itself in your skin is usually a sign of poor gut health and the microbiome being imbalanced. Now, high fat diets can really help the gut bacteria and help gut health. If you're healthy, if you have a healthy gut, the chances are your skin is going to be very healthy. One of the things that everybody reports on the Live Up plan, because it's a high fat diet, the way I like to do it, it has carbs in there as well, but I like to really push the fats up for hormonal health, is that within a couple of weeks their skin is better than it's been in decades. You know, I'm a huge advocate that if you want good skin, stop covering it in shit and just eat properly. That's a fact. Look at me, I'm actually 64 years old, believe it or not, and I've never had a spot in my life because I've got such a clean diet. Boski, what's good pre-workout, warm-up and finisher? Boski, if you go to my YouTube channel, Elliot Upton, and there's a warm-up on there, dynamic warm-up that I do before my leg sessions, so you can go and watch that. The same thing can be done at the end, but I would suggest static stretching at the end, especially focusing on anything you know to be tight. Plats, nothing worse than injuries. Get deep tissues and legs and stretch for legs, absolutely. What's the best exercise for when you've done your ankle in? Bicep curl, I guess. Best exercise for when you've done your ankle in. Be a bit more specific than that, Philly. Great, thanks Elliot, really appreciate the help. No problem at all. Danny G. When I start weight training, do I just make notes and go up and weight weekly? Clueless. Compound lifting, thank you, sorry for pecking your head, no problem, Wiley. What I'd recommend is that you get yourself set up with a full body training protocol. So train your full body, every muscle in your body, maybe for 3 or 4 sets in total per muscle group, 3 to 4 times a week maximum. Record it all, stick to the same exercises for between 3 and 6 weeks, and just try to progressively overload. So each session, just try to lift a little bit more. You don't have to go crazy, a kilogram more is enough, and just try to constantly progress. That's not to say that you will progress all of the time. You are not going to go in every single muscle group every single day and always lift more. Don't stress about that, it's not a problem, that's perfectly normal, but attempt to always lift more. Some days you'll have a couple of sessions before you can't lift more, that's fine. Just keep trying to progress. We call that progressive overload, and that is absolutely vital. It is key to constantly moving forwards. Thanks. Tips for last week. I'd guess 37. Not 37. Ouch, Joanne. Ouch. I can't tell whether that was just you trying to be rude or mean or abusive or ouch is all I'm saying. Yeah, Philly, if you've done your ankle in, it depends what you've done. It depends what kind of exercise you're asking for. Are you asking for leg exercises? You're asking for strength exercises? Be a little bit more. The lovely nanny, what could I take while on UP plan if my blood sugar drops quickly during long working days, traveling with no proper food on hand to have? Been having glucose or protein bars on hand optimal. That's exactly what you shouldn't be having, lovely nanny. If you're finding that you are getting blood sugar fluctuations, then having something that is going to rapidly elevate your blood sugar is absolutely not a good idea. What I would recommend is, whilst controlling your calories, is increase potentially your carb intake elsewhere. But if you're going to do so, be sure that it is blood sugar drops and you're not just feeling like you want carbs, because the majority of time when I've had clients in the past who say, oh, my blood sugar's dropping low, it's not at all, they just want carbs. So certainly don't be shoveling protein bars and glucose down your neck. I wouldn't suggest that unless you've been medically advised to do so. Thoughts on intra-workout cyclic dextrin or Pepto Pro? Can be useful, but what I would suggest is that, number one, if you have any suspicion whatsoever that you have gut problems, i.e. you have wind, you have bloating, you have any kind of discomfort at any point, don't do it. If you have body fat to lose, don't do it. If you have problems dieting and creating a calorie deficit, don't do it. It's one of these things, having that amount of calories in such concentrated sugar can cause gut problems long term. It can also, it's a waste of calories essentially. You know, if you're like me and you struggle to control your appetite, you're better off having proper food where your body's actually going to expel a bit of energy whilst doing it. So does it have its uses? Yes. Does it have its uses for everybody? Yes. But is it optimal for everybody? No. I would suggest if you're having it, you would have to be carrying an awful lot of muscle anyway. You would have to be very, very lean anyway to really make it work for you properly. 17 years in the business. I'm guessing you started out in your 20s. Now I've been PTing for about 12 years and I've been in gyms since I was about 14. So no. Bitch. Unbelievable. Not a day over 25, surely. HRV, you kiss ass. I am crutches. You're on crutches. It doesn't help me that well, Philly. You know, if you're on crutches, that would suggest to me that you can't do any leg exercises. So stick to upper body stuff for now and potentially upper body metabolic stuff. Even if you could do seated battling ropes, that's really, really good for burning stuff. Can you build muscle whilst cutting? In my opinion, yes, you can. Obviously, that does depend on the levels of body fat you are talking about. If you are just trying to lose fat, I do believe personally, yes, that you can also gain muscle dependent on how you choose to train. Now, people say that they are exclusive. You can't do one without the other. I absolutely disagree. In my opinion, it's just because the people who are trying to diet really hard are trying to diet too hard and they are training incorrectly with masses of volume, which is not necessarily conducive to muscle building in a natural athlete. So I do believe you can do it, yes. But that again is going to divide opinions. If, however, you are cutting down to crazy low levels of body fat, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you are going to have a very good time doing that if you're able to at all. So, you know, if it's a case of simply, are you fairly average, are you sitting around, you know, 15-20% body fat and you want to get down to 10, can you build muscle at the same time? Yes, I believe you can. Lovely Nanny, blurry mind and shaky, maybe carbs missing then. Maybe. Or it could just be a lack of hydration. That's another one. I'm always dubious to reinforce this kind of stuff, as you may have told, because so many people, it's not saying you are, but in my experience, 90% of clients in the past create symptoms to justify a dietary change to fit their preference, if that makes sense. They will decide that something is happening in order to get something added to their diet when it probably isn't happening. That's not to say it is. If you are getting low blood glucose, then by all means add some extra carbs. But the last thing you need to be doing is adding high glycemic index carbs, things that are going to shunt your blood sugar up and down. Otherwise, you are inevitably going to get those crashes. So yeah. Silly, trying to reduce my body fat percentage and working 4 to 5 times a week, but struggling with the program. Anything you'd recommend, please? If you're struggling with a program, you can try our Live Up program. It's designed to burn muscle very quickly and burn fat very, very quickly and build muscle. We do one for males, one for females, and it does work extremely well. If you're struggling for a program, that will be the way to go, and it's just £50 per month, so it certainly isn't going to break anybody's bank. I felt my left shoulder click out of place a year ago, and I've completely stopped training shoulders because of it. It's so painful. Been to physio and had some acupuncture, but nothing seems to help. Plats, I would recommend certainly not training it at all. Probably isn't a very good idea because let's take the shoulder joint. So if you imagine this is my upper arm and moving around inside the shoulder joint. Now, if there is no muscle structure there, it's free to move, it's free to fall out. If, however, I can strengthen the muscle structure around it, tighten that up, it then moves, but it is safe. It does what it's supposed to do. So not training it isn't necessarily a very good idea at all. Training it steadily, carefully, and with progressive overload over time is probably the best thing you can do to stop that pain. Now, that is, of course, dependent on what you did to it, where the issue actually lies, but work alongside with your physio, because I would imagine your physio has recommended you do exercise. So some of that caution is good. Too much caution is probably going to leave you with a lifelong injury. So gradually ease yourself back into it, in my opinion. Would you attempt to fix a squat with a client first or find an alternative for the client if they want to improve leg development? Depends on what the problem is. You know, quite often, if we look at the most common problems with squats, Problem number one is a lack of mobility in the ankles or an excessive forward lean. So that immediately can be fixed with something as simple as a wedge under their ankles. There's no need to mess around with anything complicated, doing all these biomechanics tests and all this rubbish. Yes, it does matter, but if you have got a client for 6, 8, 12 weeks and you need to get a transformation out of them, put a bloody wedge under their ankles. It's not a problem. It's going to mechanically fix their squat very, very quickly. Secondly, it may be tight hips. If they have excessively tight hips and they feel impingement, let's say in the front of their hips, then yeah, by all means, rather than spending 6 weeks stretching the hips out and then squatting, just get them doing something like a rear foot elevated split squat or a split squat variation. Why? Because they are very, very good at activating the muscles on the front of the leg, the glutes, the quads, but extraordinarily good at stretching out the muscles on the back of the, on the rear leg. So the TFL, we're talking about rec fem, the quads, psoas complex. So a split squat of variations thereof can be very, very useful for fixing squat mechanics while still getting leg development and body composition changes out of a client. Flat pack to 6 pack, squeeze lime with 1 pink Himalayan salt or apple cider vinegar first thing in the morning. Bro science or benefits? I would absolutely say benefits. With me and all of my clients, when they have that in the morning, it reduces bloating and improves digestion throughout the day without a doubt. So just through practice and seeing it physically happen and feeling it myself, it works. So would you say that all the city crazes, Barry's, F45, Cobox, etc. are not going to give you as good a results as staying in the gym and a personalised plan? Absolutely yes. This again is my opinion. Elliot Upton, not UP. 100%. Yeah, because they're not programmed, they're not personalised to you. The fact is, if you want to get results, you are different to everybody else in one of those classes. Now, that is not to say that these things are not beneficial. Why? Because they get you off your sofa. Anything that gets you off your ass and out of a television screen that's showing Netflix for 16 hours a day is good. I'm all for it. However, do something that is right for you. People are getting 0 results. They're spinning their wheels in the gym for years on end and wondering why. That ultimately leaves them with mental issues, a frustration, often some form of mild negative association with the gym. They're not compliant in their diet. They never get to see what it feels like to truly be in control of their body and feel awesome, look in the mirror and say, God damn, I look good, despite physical and mental effort of getting themselves to that gym. Why is it their fault? No, it is not, because they have been led to believe that in these gyms they are going to get results. They are going to do this, they are going to do that, they're going to do it. No, they are not. Burning calories, yes, is going to help you lose fat in a most basic way. However, it's not going to build muscle, it's not going to optimize health, it's not going to do any of the things that you do when you actually undertake a transformation. Now, that transformation is not just skin deep, it's not what you see on the surface, it isn't the six pack, it's not the better arms, the better shoulders, the better bum. It's what it does to your brain, it's who it makes you become, it's the confidence it gives you, it's everything that goes along with those physical changes. It turns you into a better person that you apply to your life, your relationships, etc. So these things do have a purpose. Getting off the sofa and exercising in whatever way that is to you, whatever makes you enjoy it, then do it. But if you want results, if you legitimately want results and you want to make a difference, then get in a gym, get a program that has been built to get you a transformation and be guided through it. There is never, ever, ever, ever going to be anything better than that, and that is a fact. You have to remember that weight training, programmed progressive weight training, is the one fad that has stood the test of time. For everything that has come and gone in the fitness industry for years and years and years, it is the one thing that has never faded away and never been disproven and never this and never that. It's the one thing that's always been the staple. So you can buy into as much bullshit and fads out on the high street or in magazines or on Instagram or Facebook as you want, but the fact of the matter is there is always only ever going to be one thing that is truly effective and sustainable, and that's weight training, bitch. Great, thanks. We'll play around with meal structure and see what works. Kiki, weight started at 76 and now 54. Awesome, well done. Been on carb cycle for approximately 7 months, 3 low, 3 moderate, and 1 refeed, 1500. Would you recommend increasing calories now? Don't feel as much. It sounds to me like you've got a personal trainer, because that's a very, very complicated way of approaching a diet. So rather than ask me, I would suggest going to your trainer to see if they can push that, because that's, if you put that together yourself, then you've done some serious reading. It sounds to me like you got a trainer. What was a good suggestion for breakfast? Because I'm under 16. Same as everybody else. Have omelette, have some protein pancakes, have red meat and nuts can always do you well. Salmon and scrambled eggs. There's a million different things you can do. For the UP Fitness online plan, do you provide macros for the day, or is it per meal, or also do you give meal plans? We tend not to give meal plans because meal plans are inflexible. The meal plans are a pretty surefire way to fail. Now, yes, a lot of people out there in the fitness industry do give you meal plans because it's what you think you want. Ultimately, if you are going to a fitness plan with a meal plan, chances are you might get in shape for a couple of weeks, then you're going to screw it up and it's all going to end because you can't sustain it, you can't eat out, you can't live. We don't sell you what you want, we sell you what we know you need, and this is the difference. So no, we tend not to give meal plans for that reason. Macros you will get on one-to-one online training. On the Live Up plan, no, you do not get macros, you get approximate portion sizes. Bitch. Thanks, you're welcome. How many meals per day ideal for fat loss? However many you can consistently eat. For me, I always prefer to get clients to eat as many as possible. That's not necessarily for the fat loss effect, but it certainly is for the appetite control effect, the general energy effect, and the fact that it's going to help most people, especially those of you with poor or sort of worse hormonal environments for muscle building, to remain anabolic, which is going to have a knock-on effect. So for me, the more meals you can eat, the better. Alicia Berglund, do you suggest DIM supplements for stubborn leg fat? Yes, absolutely. You can get some DIM, diindolylmethane. It's a compound derived from indole-3-carbinol, which we spoke about earlier in green vegetables. It works amazingly in conjunction with calcium D-glucarate. Now, DIM is what takes it out of the body and allows it to be excreted, but unfortunately, this enzyme beta-glucuronidase grabs it back, rebinds it, and puts it back in the body. Whereas if you take calcium D-glucarate, not only does it get it out of your tissues, but it also gets it out of your body, so use them synergistically. I have 15 seconds left. Hard to eat more than 3 meals and stick to calories. Depends what the meals are made up of. What is the best supplement to take when you want to lose weight? There is no supplement, it's all about food. I have 3 seconds left, so I will see you next week. Thank you for coming, bye-bye. YouTube, that was yet again another nice, lively, and god damn it went quick as well, live feed over on @UP Fitness Live. Of course, if you haven't had a chance to ask questions there, then put them in the comments box below here. I will put links in the descriptions box here, which will take you back to anything that I have spoken about today. If you have any interest in the Live Up online plan, you have any interest in the one-to-one online training or actual one-to-one in any one of our gyms around the world, across the UK, across the United States, Australia, Asia, Europe, you can check them out. So come and join us next week if you've watched this on catch up. Let's try that one. Please do like, comment, share, subscribe, get this out there, get this information out there, especially now around Christmas when everyone is trying to rip you off. But until next week, Wednesday, 8 o'clock at UP Fitness Live, I will see you later.